Okay, we're official. So again, thank you for coming today to Chemical Engineering Industry Hour. Um, it's it's a Monday night, and we have some great panelists. So with respect to everybody's time, I'm going to introduce Emily Seals from the Career Center, and she's going to do a little presentation in regards to the benefits that the Career Center offers all of our students. Again, my name is Karen Lewis. I am one of the advisors in the hub, and I am going to be your host tonight, but I'm going to turn it over to Emily, and she can talk to all of you. And then we will get down to business and discuss, have some questions for our panelists as well. So all you, Em,
Awesome. Thank you so much,
of course.
everyone. I'm really happy to have you all here today to talk a little bit about chemical engineering. As Karen said, my name is Emily Stiles. I'm the Assistant Director for Career Development here at RPI. So I work often with engineering students as they go through their career development. So today, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to take a moment to share my screen. Today, I just wanted to share a little bit with you specifically some hiring statistics that we have for chemical engineers, as well as what we can do to support chemical engineers throughout their time here at RPI. So hopefully everyone can see my screen okay. But a little bit before I jump in, I mentioned that we have a lot of hiring statistics for chemical engineers, well, for all majors across RPI, but today we're specifically going to be talking about chemical engineering. And how we gather this data is through something called our Future Plans Survey, something that we give to all graduating students, whether they graduate in December, whether August or May graduation. So that's where we collect a lot of this data to see where our students are going after graduation, whether it's a full-time job, they might be going into grad school, they could be going into the military, they could be taking a gap year and doing a service year sort of thing. So we really try to grab that information. And ideally, how this can really help you is sort of determine is what you can be doing with your career. And so things like this industry hour event are super helpful as well to just sort of kind of conceptualize as a chemical engineer, what are the companies you could be working for? What's the type of work you could be doing on the day to day? So here is some information I pulled from our Future Plan survey about the employers that chemical engineers specifically go to work with after graduation. Now, I do want to be clear, this is not an extensive list. This is just a sampling. I just pulled some random ones that I thought really stood out and that were really popular amongst our students. All of this full information, if you want a full list, this is on our website. So I definitely recommend you visit the CCPD website to get a more extensive view of where our students are going after graduation. But a lot of chemical engineers might go to work for Albany Molecular Research, Applied Materials, Bayer Material Science, Bristol Myers Squibb, Edwards Life Sciences, Johnson & Johnson, GE, Global Foundries, Pfizer, Raytheon, Regeneron, Naval Warfare Center, Eli Lilly. So all these different places are just an idea of where you could go to work, right? And so it's just good. One reason that this future plan survey can be helpful is you might learn of companies that you've never heard of before, and it might pique your interest to say, oh, that's interesting, I never thought about working there as a chemical engineer. So look at this list to get some ideas of different companies you could work for as well. Sorry, just kind of okay. The other piece, I'm going to do a little plug for Handshake, which is our career management platform. But this is where you can start to get an idea of actual jobs that you could be going into, whether you're interested in an internship or a full-time position. Handshake is where you really can be going. There's many platforms you can use, but one of it's our career management system here at RPI where you can do a job search. So I went into Handshake today and I just pulled out 4 different jobs that stood out to me for chemical engineers. And so I'm sure your panelists are going to talk a lot more in depth about their role as chemical engineers, but I just wanted to demonstrate that there are positions within Handshake that are chemical engineers, and so you can see the types of positions out there as well as where they might be located. So as you can see, chemical engineer for air protein in California, a chemical operations engineer for Jarcom Industries in Newark, New Jersey, an intern position at Applied Materials, and I did look specifically, they are hiring for chemical engineering internships. And then bioengineering, chemical engineering intern at Thermo Fisher Scientific. So this is just a very, very small snapshot of different types of positions that are out there, and also a sampling for Handshake. Again, that is our primary platform for job searching here at RPI, but it's such a great resource to be using. So another big aspect that a lot of people ask about is salary statistics. So as I mentioned, we collect salary information for our cohorts of students. So from the class of 2020, and this is of those reporting, right? Again, this is a survey, so not every single student fills this out, but this is of those reporting, the average salary was $74,884. And there was a range of $50,000 to $100,000 of those who are graduating and reporting. Now, something to think about, this could be students who are maybe going into different industries, right? They might be going for chemical engineering, but with different industries and different companies. And it is possible that there were some master's degree students in this mix as well. So just something to think about, but this can help you sort of figure out some earning potential after you graduate, right? This could help with your salary negotiation and help you realize some expectations that you should be having when you're about to enter into the workforce. I also like to pull information from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I like to look at their median pay. Bureau of Labor Statistics is a really great resource for anyone who's never been on it. But you know, I looked at the median pay. So this is 50% of chemical engineers make more than this, and then 50% of chemical engineers make less than this. And again, this is just to show earning potential. And the ways we all know this, the way salaries work, it's really based on your education, your experience level, your skills, what you bring to the table. So as new graduates, you know, be aware of how much you're thinking of, but this $108,540 could be something for you to think of as earning potential down the road as you become a more seasoned professional. So again, I encourage you to look on our website for salary statistics, but Bureau of Labor Statistics is also a really great resource to utilize if you're looking for not only salary information, but just some information, additional information on chemical engineering, for example. So I mentioned that, you know, we do a lot in the CCPD to help you throughout your career development. So we don't only just do this survey, right, or help you with career exploration. We also help you really from A to Z of your career development. So from choosing your right major to career exploration, to application materials, applying to jobs, you know, doing interviewing, preparing for interviews, negotiating that salary or accepting different offers, to even applying to grad school and so much more. So please, you know, don't hesitate to reach out to our office when it comes to your career development. We have some really great career counselors. I am sure a lot of you have met with Kristen Kettering. She's one of the counselors for the School of Engineering, or myself, or Bulos. And we love to see students, so don't hesitate to send us an email or make an appointment with us through Handshake to help you with whatever you need. My email is right here, silese@rpi.edu. Again, I'm very accessible via email, and I'm also always happy to take appointments, so you can schedule an appointment with me right through Handshake. So I will open the floor to any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Emily. You know, if a student does have any questions, they're more than welcome to just turn their microphone on and ask away. Personally, as a first year advisor, I know I've had a lot of students talk about the upcoming career fair, and they often ask if it's worth a first year to go. And I always like to hear what your perspective on that is, because I can definitely have my own opinion, but I'd love to hear what you would like to tell them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think attending a career fair as a first year student is very valuable. There is a huge push for hiring right now with companies, and I have seen an unbelievable amount of first-year students and sophomores getting internships and co-ops because there are these opportunities out there. So if you're looking for an opportunity and you're hesitant because you think as a first-year student you might not be qualified, I would encourage you to think a little bit deeper, because I guarantee if you spoke with Karen or myself or any of our counselors, we could really talk to you about the skills that do make you a really great candidate for these positions, right? It's a way that we talk about ourselves, we market ourselves per se through our application materials, and we all bring something unique to the table. So it's about how do we talk about that. The other piece of the career fair is this networking and connecting aspect that's really valuable in a job search. So a lot of times first year students, they themselves don't want an internship or co-op right now, and that's okay. But it's a good time to start building those connections, because eventually your sophomore or junior year for the arts, you might want an internship or co-op. And how valuable is it to start having those conversations now? Start to learn the companies you're interested in. Start to explore the skills that they're looking for and the qualities that they're looking for. And where are their gaps? How can you use your time wisely and effectively to start building out your resume so that you do become a competitive candidate for a particular job you might be super interested in. So regardless if you're actively searching or you are just know you will eventually want an internship or co-op, building those connections through a career fair is super valuable, because it's also that the idea for recruiters, that's the setting they're looking to kind of build an applicant pool. So they're there to answer those questions. It's kind of like your moment to have with those recruiters that you might not necessarily have through email or at other times of the year.
Awesome, thank you. And our advice aligns, so I appreciate that too. Does anybody else have any questions for Emily? Well, my advice would be, of course, if you do have any questions, email her directly or go to the Career Center. If you guys haven't already set up a Handshake account, do so, because it's extremely beneficial, as Emily mentioned. Emily, thank you for tonight, and I appreciate you coming on, and we'll wrap it up with you if there's no more questions. Okay. Well, thank you for your time.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Have a great night.
You too. Okay, so now if I could have my panelists turn their cameras on, we're going to introduce everybody. And one thing for the students that are attending tonight, if you have questions for our panelists, feel free to type them right into the chat, and I'm going to address any questions towards the end of our conversation. So they will be safe and sound there until we're ready to go to those. So thank you all for joining tonight. Again, I'm Karen Lewis, and I am here on behalf of the chemical engineering advisor, Valerie Swenson, who couldn't be with us tonight, but I'm very grateful to be with you guys and appreciate you spending the evening with me. So I guess we'll get started by if each one of you can briefly introduce yourselves to the group with your name, where you work, if you work currently, where you're from and where you live now, and the degree and where you went to school. And since you're right next to me, George, perhaps we'll start with you, okay?
Great. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is George Delakos. I'm a research engineer at General Electric. I work on giant wind turbines. I try to make them more efficient and safer to use. I've been working at GE over 20 years, and I did my undergraduate and graduate work at RPI. So I've been there, I did all my studies there. And a little unique in that, even though I've worked in the industry for a while, I still go back to RPI, and I teach one class there to chemical engineering seniors in their design class. So I love going back to RPI. I like teaching students what I do and what industry is like. And you know, again, I think chemical engineering is a great degree. It's a very versatile one, and you can do so many things. So I'm just eager to talk to you guys tonight.
Great. Thank you, George, and welcome. Julie, you want to?
Sure. Hey everyone, my name is Julie Robinson, and I currently work at Ask Bio, which is a gene therapy startup company, and I am a downstream process development scientist, which means that after you make the therapy, I work on purifying it and getting it into the final form that goes to patients. So I actually did my graduate work at RPI. I got my PhD and I worked in for a chemical engineering professor, Steve Kramer. And I got my undergraduate degree also in chemical engineering from Clemson University in South Carolina.
Great. Thank you. And Maria.
Student panelist for tonight. I'm a junior currently at RPI in chemical engineering. I'm from Connecticut, but currently living in Troy because school. But I'm really excited to be here and kind of share my experience of being a chemie.
Okay, so thank you all. And we're going to cut right to it and start with the questions. And if you guys want to continue on the same sequence, like same order, we could do that if that works for everybody. So the first question that I think everybody is probably waiting to hear from you is why you decided to become a chemical engineer. A lot of times students on this attending this are undeclared at this point, so would love to hear your perspective.
I guess I'll go first. So I'll give you two answers. One is why I decided to go into chemical engineering before going to RPI, and then maybe some thoughts on it afterwards when I realized maybe what it was like. So going to RPI, I absolutely loved taking things apart. I loved fixing things. So I knew I wanted to do some sort of engineering. I also loved chemistry. I just loved how you could create things and how you could kind of like mix things together and just do chemical reactions. I thought that was the neatest thing. And so that's what really kind of got me interested. I also had a family friend that did chemical engineering, so that was an important aspect in the decision. Afterwards, I realized that chemical engineering is such a even looking at other engineering degrees, it's such a diverse sort of degree. You can do so many things you want, and I've seen so many different people do. Chemical engineers do so many different sort of non-chemical engineering sort of things. So I think that's if I choose and chose chemical engineering, that's why I do it again. It's just so diverse, and it teaches to do so many different things.
Great, thank you.
So I'll go next. Sort of a similar story for me. Chemistry was my favorite subject in high school. I really liked the connection between the theory with the hands-on practical aspect of like doing labs. So my high school chemistry teacher actually she was like, Julie, you enjoy it, you're good at it, you should major in chemistry. But I was like, oh, well, there's not quite enough math for me in chemistry. So she's like, well, there is this thing called chemical engineering. So she was the person who really introduced me to chemical engineering and where I first heard about it. And very similar to y'all, at Clemson, I was in a first year engineering course where we really got to explore the different disciplines. And that's kind of what solidified that, yeah, chemical engineering is really what I'm interested in. And I would say the thing that really like kept me in chemical engineering was the blend between there's like a lot of like book learning and studying, but then I get to jump into lab and really be hands-on and see these principles that I learned in the classroom in action.
Great,
That's
thank you.
also kind of similar. It kind of seemed like a natural path for me. Like I like science and math, which kind of led me to engineering. I wasn't like super interested in mechie or aero or electrical. And as I was looking through like the different disciplines, chemie seems like pretty interesting. I was also considering biomedical, but I felt like that was a little more limiting. I liked what options I had within. Um, and also with like the first year kind of intro to chemical engineering course that I took, I saw, what options I had, and what I could do with this degree, and that kind of solidified that I knew that I want to continue down that.
Great, thank you guys. This question specifically is for Julie. You mentioned you studied your undergrad at Clemson and you came to RPI for your graduate study in chemical engineering. Can you tell us about your decision to study somewhere different for your PhD?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say there's kind of two components to that. One was advice from my undergrad research advisor, and one was like a personal desire to just, go somewhere different and experience a different perspective. So I guess on the from my undergrad advisor, once we decided that, yeah, I did want to continue down. I guess I should preface this by saying I did undergrad research, and we can talk about that if you have questions, because I'm very passionate about that for undergrads as a great experience. But after, I worked for him for several years, and once we decided that I did want to go to grad school, I told him that I kind of wanted to continue in the same subject matter that I was working in because I liked it. And so I mentioned that I worked for this particular professor, Steve Kramer, and he was most of the reason why I decided to go to RPI. He's very well known in our field and just like an overall great guy. So I came to RPI to work for him. And so that's like the academic reason I came to RPI. And then on the flip side, and talking again to my undergrad advisor, he was like, Julie, you could stay at Clemson and do your PhD in my lab, but it's really beneficial to go somewhere different, get a different perspective. You'll be taking graduate courses and the curriculum is slightly different, and, just like interact with a different subset of chemical engineers. And so I think that's a huge benefit from the academic side, but also just from it's a different region of the country. You get to explore different places. So that's kind of a cool benefit of doing undergrad in one spot and grad school in a different location.
Thank you. I'm going to follow up that question with another one for you, Julie. You also have had several publications. Can you tell us about one of your more favorite or interesting areas that you've done research and studied in?
Yeah, so this is kind of a cool story. Coming in, I told Professor Kramer, I was like, oh, I love working in lab. I want to be like we call it like a wet lab. And so being in lab doing experiments as opposed to doing like modeling during my PhD. Well, he was like, yeah, that's great. But then there's also this modeling project that he kind of like put in my lap as a challenge. And that ended up being one of my favorite projects that I worked on, because it really exposed me to a different area that I didn't really have much experience in previously. So it was a lot of digging in. It was so sort of like data science, statistical modeling. And so I got to take classes I took and I audited a couple of classes in the computer science department that were just structured very differently from what I was used to in the chemical engineering curricula. And it kind of was pushing the envelope and kind of merging these two different fields. So it's cool because it's something that, I didn't think I was interested in, but once I dug in, it was actually really exciting and new. And it's also, I think it's always good to be sort of interdisciplinary and to look to see where can you combine things from two different fields to maybe make something novel. So yeah, that was one of my favorites.
Thank you. And speaking of interdisciplinary, George, you have indicated that you changed your major from biomed to chemical engineering, and you have industry experience in both materials and a little bit of IME-ish stuff. So I was wondering if you could talk about the applicability of an engineering education to various disciplines within the field.
Yeah, I think again with engineering in general, I've been in the industry for a while, and I've just seen um, I had a discussion with a colleague once, and I said, I see a lot of people who are trained in engineering doing things like law and doing sales and marketing, basically all the different sorts of things that people in the business do. But I don't usually see somebody in marketing go into engineering or sales go into engineering. So in general, it gives you engineering in general allows you to do so many different things. And I think it really it just interests me to try to learn different things. So like Julie mentioned, picking up something in computer science, is a really neat experience. I mean, I think again, getting an engineering degree allows you to kind of figure out things that, even if you didn't have training, it allows you to give you the tools to figure it out. So I definitely think that it depends on the person, but also having an engineering degree at least allows you if you're interested. Makes sense.
Awesome, thank you. And you also mentioned that you've continued working with RPI through the capstone mentoring that you do. Can you tell us a little bit more about that as well?
Sure. So as I mentioned, I had gone to RPI for my graduate degree, and I failed to mention it, but I am in the area, so I'm about 20 miles west of RPI. And so one day I had lunch with actually Professor Blosky, who's the head of the department, who was my advisor. And he sometime once in a while he had asked me to cover for him. He'd go to a conference or something and said, "Hey, I have could you come in and teach this one class, one semester or something?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, sure." And I did that for about a year or so, and then we had lunch one day, and he said, "Hey, did you like teaching? Going in class and teaching?" I'm like, "Yeah, it was really great." And I wish that I could actually kind of teach a few classes to see how how it kind of goes after the class, because I would just teach one class and just leave. And so I said, I'm glad you asked that, because I have this opportunity for if you're interested in teaching the capstone design class. And I absolutely, first of all, that was my favorite class at RPI. And also, I'd always looked to, when I was a student, my parents were engineers, and I knew nothing about engineering. And I'd always wished that there were people out in industry coming in and teaching more about what they actually do. And so I kind of did that because I love kind of mentoring and teaching students in general. I also do that not only in college, but also younger kids too in high school. And so I love doing that, but it was my favorite class, and it was really a way to give back to RPI and just kind of show students, hey, this is kind of what we do in industry. So that's how that happened. That was 15 years ago, and I'm doing it.
Excellent. And Maria, you have something to look forward to with the senior capstone project, huh? So this past summer, Maria, you had an internship, correct? And can you tell us about that experience as well?
I can. So this summer I had the opportunity to work at St. Gobain at their Hoosick Falls site. It's just down the road, like 30 minutes towards Vermont. So St. Gobain, they're a French company, but they have like a bunch of sites all over the US. At this site, we did tape solutions, and there were a bunch of different departments. There was pressure sensitive adhesive tape, or PSAT as they called it, extruded tape, foam, rubber, and a couple other things. I was a process engineer intern, so I worked very closely with the process engineers. Um, and during my time there, I worked on a few projects. I had two kind of big ones. My first was in the extruded tape department. So I worked very closely with the extruded tape engineer. And in that, I was testing the percent solids of a bunch of pigments they use. And this is important because the pigments are put in the mixes that are used to make the extruded tape product. But what one of the problems was is there's this big mix sheet that the mixers use to create said mixes. And it was kind of standardized when it was first made. It didn't really take into account the different components of each separate pigment. So what I did is I worked on testing, again, first testing the percent solids, and then testing or from there backtracking to the percent loading that went into those mixes. And this way it would kind of help with waste, because I mean sometimes there was quite a bit of waste generated. Um, hunt and um, this it would help um, the mixers kind of understand maybe where they went wrong if we test a mix and there's too much isopar, which is kind of the lubricant liquid that went into the mix. So that was interesting. That was a pretty big project. I had a lot of Excel spreadsheets and data and all that kind of stuff. And second thing that I did was kind of led a project to install, set up and calibrate a laser sensor. So this was more in the foam department. But the laser sensor was important because the foam, which has a lot of applications in the electric vehicle market, has to be within like certain specifications. So obviously we want to monitor that and make sure that it's within those specifications. So the laser sensor was a pretty big project. It was like a lot of collaborative stuff. There's a lot of software I wasn't familiar with, so I worked with our controls engineer and the third-party representatives from the company where we got the laser from to set it up. And it was very interesting because we had to troubleshoot a lot. There was a lot of issues between the sensor and then our systems. It just was not reading the same thing, so it was a big effort. But it was really interesting and it came together. And what was cool about this was I'm taking CPDC right now, which is Chemical Process Dynamics and Control. So I kind of saw the controls aspect in that class from what I learned this summer, which was really cool. And then additionally, some smaller things that I worked on in that time was a few SOPs, which are standard operating procedures. And I did things like the laser sensor for that, and then testing of like the different pigments. And overall, it was just a very interesting experience. I never had experience in industry before, so doing that, learning from other people was just really awesome.
It sounds awesome. I'm intrigued. I want to work there. Now, talking more about campus, Maria, aside from your internships, you're also involved on campus, both within chemical engineering outside. Can you speak to your campus involvement?
Mm-hmm. So I am involved in AICHI as of fall 2020, so about a year now. I wish I joined freshman year, but AICHI is really cool because it's kind of a network of chemical engineers and we have weekly meetings. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to attend many meetings this semester due to work conflicts. But some weeks, there will be a speaker or an alum who comes by from a company that's in the industry and talks to us about kind of their education and what they do, that kind of stuff. Other meetings are professional workshops or networking opportunities. And I think that's really great because you can learn about the different paths that you could take as a chemie and kind of get a sense of what you may want to do. And you also have access to online modules, actually. I didn't know this when I first joined last year, but this semester I was taking a course which is kind of monitored by Professor Plosky called Chemical Process Safety. So you have to be a member of AICHI to access the courses, which is why the connect. But basically you can take these courses and learn about industry. So they have a bunch of different kind of modules, but one of them is lab safety, also process hazards, and more of the ethical side and stuff like that, which is really, really cool. And then besides AICHI, I am also involved. I was involved in student government for a couple of years. I decided to take a step back from that because I wanted to focus on other things. And then I am involved in fraternity and sorority life. I'm a member of Pi Beta Phi fraternity for women. And in there, I have a position. I'm currently a vice president operations. And I really love it. It's kind of allowed me to grow as a person and a leader and my experience beyond academics. So that's a bit about what I do besides internship.
Awesome. And we also in the hub we try to encourage students to get heavily involved in activities outside of academics, even if they're academic related, just for the simple fact that it does diversify your experiences a little bit as a student. And it overall contributes to your sense of well-being, I think. So thank you for that. This question's for all three of you, and it's just, what is your favorite part of your day, whether it be during an internship or on the job? Whoever wants to go first can, doesn't matter.
I guess I can go first. So I don't know if I have a favorite part of the day. I think a favorite part of the job is always learning new things and doing different things. I think, somebody once told me, engineers solve problems, and I never really thought of it, but it's really true. I mean, you go to work and you have to basically solve a new problem. It always makes the job interesting. So I would say that's kind of the most exciting part of my day, is to get a new problem and to go try to figure it out. And again, use the things that you learned in school to do that. It's really, exciting to do that.
So I'll highlight two aspects. One, on a day-to-day basis, one of my favorite parts is collaborating with different functions within my company. So I mentioned that I'm what's called like a downstream process scientist. So I basically interact with the upstream group who makes the drug, and then my group purifies it. And then we have an analytical group. And so they run all these sorts of tests, sort of like what Maria was talking about, to make sure we're within our like target drug substance like specifications. And then we're also talking to like our regulatory and quality groups who interact with like the FDA and are writing like our regulatory applications. And so it's really cool. All these different pieces kind of fit together like a puzzle. And so I am like a subject matter expert in downstream in the purification component, but I have to interface with all these other groups. And by interfacing them, sort of what George was alluding to, I get to like learn about like the different aspects and how we all kind of like work together to bring to develop these new drugs and bring them to market. And then on taking like a step back, I think on like a little bit bigger scale, the favorite thing about my job is that, so I work on these production processes and I'm doing experiments on the bench scale. So imagine like, your chemistry lab. But then the process that I developed is eventually going to get scaled up to like a commercial manufacturing scale. So I think my favorite part is, doing some experiments, setting operating conditions, designing a particular like step, and then at the small scale, and then seeing that implemented in a manufacturing scale and seeing it actually like be incorporated as part of a process for like this drug that, is going through clinical trials. So it'll be injected to patients. So I think just kind of knowing and like seeing that, oh, this like small scale work will then be incorporated into this process that's actually going to like go into patients and, make an impact. I think that's super cool.
Sounds really gratifying, for sure. Now, I know you talked a little bit about your internship, Maria, but did you have a favorite part of it that you want to highlight?
So I guess for my internship, I really liked going out to the floor. I did this most days, like sometimes multiple times. But the floor, like the plant floor, is where all the big machinery is and where all the processes happen. So first of all, you need to be properly dressed. So for us, at least, that required steel-toe boots, eye protection, um, earplugs, ear protection in some areas. Um, but I would get to talk to the operators and kind of get a feel of what was going on and see a lot of these processes in action. So that was really cool because, in like class we talk about processes and things like this, but I didn't really have a good understanding of what it looks like in industry. To be able to learn from the operators and the engineers, and then take that knowledge back with me to class and kind of understand and see how everything fits in was really awesome.
Great, thank you. Now, we have students who are either contemplating chemical engineering or are in their first year of chemical engineering. Do you have any advice for students who are actually considering the major, how to kind of come to a revelation that maybe chemical engineering is the right major for them?
Um, you know what I would do is talk to as many people as you can. And the thing is, when I was an undergraduate, I absolutely, would not talk to people. It's hard to do. But what you don't realize, because I used to think that, well, nobody's going to talk to me, or, you get nervous to do that. But what you don't understand, and I think when you get older, is that there's so many people that want to talk to you and want to help you. And they really want to help you out. So go see as many people as possible. Once in a while, you may run into somebody who doesn't want to talk, but I would say the vast majority of professors, or any of your instructors, would be more than happy to talk to you about chemical engineering, and they can give just so much more insight, and great kind of great stories about what chemical engineers do, and you can get a much better idea of that than maybe just doing a web search or something like that. So get out of your comfort zone and go and talk to your professors, or anybody, or graduate students too. It's really helpful. Or if you're a freshman, talk to seniors.
Okay, well, I also would weigh in. If somebody does have a question about chemical engineering, come to the hub, because Valerie Swenson is the chemical engineering advisor, and she is very knowledgeable of the major and can direct you in any direction as well. So if it's even on your radar and you want to start that process, she can also connect you with students too, including Maria here. And so knowledge is power, and coming in is always the first step that we would encourage you to do, because there's nothing wrong with asking questions. So this question's for all three of you as well. What do you wish you knew as a first-year college student that you do now? You want to start, Julie?
Sure, yeah. So a couple of things. One, actually, Maria is a great example of this. I would say definitely like get involved outside of just your like academic classes. That's a great experience, especially to develop like leadership skills, and just to help you grow and develop some of these skills, these soft skills that will just be invaluable, not only your professional career, but just like as you go about life after school. So I guess one is just to like get involved, find something you're passionate about outside of your classes. And then the second thing is, so I've like been the co-op coordinator for my department. I've been involved in hiring our co-ops, and also like our bachelor's candidates. And so I would say that, when we're reviewing our resumes, like GPA is only one component that we look at. And sort of with like, getting involved and getting those leadership skills, we also look at, experience outside of your coursework and your GPA. And, if like that is really valuable. So I'd say, don't discount the value of doing an internship or a co-op, but also, like showing like a passion outside of just your coursework, because I can almost guarantee you that, well, I can guarantee you that we're looking at it, and, other prospective employers probably have a similar viewpoint.
Thank you.
I guess a first year, I kind of had an understanding of this, but I think that it's really important that you're not like limited. So chemical engineering, it's a big field. There's a lot you can do, and it doesn't have to be traditional chemical engineering. If you like that, great. If you don't, you have options. There's a lot you can do. And some classes may not be your favorite, and that's totally fine. You're not going to enjoy every single class that you take, maybe. Um, but you don't have to focus your career on that. That's something that I kind of wish that I remembered as a freshman, because I would look at the description of the courses that I would have to take in the future, and I'd be like, oh man, that sounds so rough. Um, but now that I'm, upperclassman, I kind of understand that no, I maybe don't love a class, but it's important to learn the concepts, but I don't have to go into, I, again, don't have to focus my whole career.
You never can predict or kind of plan the future exactly. So if you believe that, then you got to try as many different things as you can. And you just don't know where something leads. I just have so many things in my life that I just got involved in something and then it just turned into something totally different. I can say that I probably wouldn't have gone to graduate school if I didn't get involved in the ACHE. And it was only because I got involved with that and talked to the head of the department at the time, who got me interested in graduate school. So, it's those little things in life you can't plan everything. And you just you can't do that. So just try as many different things as possible outside your classes, and you never know who you're going to meet or what you're going to do, and that's the best way also to find out what you're really passionate about if you don't really know them.
That's great advice from all of you. So thank you. And we in the hub also will support any questions that you have in regards to extracurriculars. We can talk about those things too. Valerie also runs a program called Meet Eng, where students can get involved. First year students can get involved with upperclassmen as a mentorship kind of relationship. So if you ever wanted to pursue that kind of avenue with an upper class chemical engineer, that's something that probably would be a great asset for you. So talk to Valerie about that as well. I think we're going to have some questions, hopefully, and I wanted to open it up for you guys to ask any questions to our students here, if they're willing, or any kind of closing remarks that you might have before we open up the floor for additional questions. Do you guys have any questions for our students? I don't want to put anyone on the spot, so we can always go to the regular questions as well. I know that there was at least one in the chat that I wanted to address. So Jacob had a question. He said, do you feel that undergrad research or interning in the industry is more beneficial to securing future job opportunities? And I'm sure you all have an opinion on that, since you've all experienced it. So whoever would like to go first is fine with me.
I think that you need to try stuff to understand what it is. So, there's no way people can kind of describe to you what a job is like unless you do it. And that's my best best advice to you guys. You do something so you can try to figure out if that's what you really like doing and what it's kind of like. So, but yes, absolutely. I think everybody's going to agree that you go and intern with a company. It's a great way to get a permanent job there. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would also say both are beneficial. I don't think one is better than the other. I think it just depends on what you're interested in. Working in an industrial setting and doing a co-op will be very different than doing undergrad research in an academic lab. For that matter, I've been a grad student and now I work in a R&D group in industry, and doing research in an academic lab is very different from doing research in an industry setting. So I would say it depends on what you're interested in. And if you get a co-op and you decide, you know, I'm actually interested in getting a PhD or like doing research later on, it doesn't disqualify you. And, you know, conversely, if you do undergrad research, but you decide, oh, maybe like that's not for me, I want to get a job after school, then you know, your undergrad research experience is still valuable and you're still getting skills that will help you later on.
And what do you think, Maria? Do you feel that your internship experience has lent you possible job security or offers in the future, or where do you feel that did it help you in any way narrow down what you want to do? Can you give us some perspective on what you feel?
For my internship experience, I didn't particularly love it. I didn't either. I thought it was really good experience either way. I was learning a lot, doing a lot. Um, but again, I think that just the experience could help me with other internships, other job opportunities. Um, I have not done undergrad research. I'm not entirely sure what I want to do, and that's okay. Um, but for what I think that I want to do, I don't feel that it's necessary. Um, Research still would be very interesting, very helpful. But at least for me, I don't think it's the best option that I could do. I think, again, just for me personally, that internship experience and working in industry is the most beneficial thing for kind of helping find out what I want to.
Thank you.
Now, one other thing, like I know that I've talked to a ton of employers who have said that seeing research or internships on a student's resume helps them stand out, you know, so that's always a positive, and that's what we kind of encourage in the hub. Like, just do something that will diversify yourself a little bit more from somebody else who is a chemical engineer as well. You know, what makes you stand out and what shows your interests and allows you to kind of shine through a bit. And you know, with research here specifically, you can earn credit. I know there's some faculty have the ability to pay for research, but that's usually a little bit you know, here and there. It's more of a credit opportunity, which, you know, you can talk to your advisor about how that could be applied to your specific curriculum too. So that is something that we talk about in the hub quite often, because if you like a faculty member, if you like a professor teaching a course, there's nothing wrong with having a little bit of a deeper conversation if that's something you did want to pursue. It never hurts to just say hello and start talking about those things. If you guys don't have any other questions, if there's anything else you guys want to close with, but in the very least, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight, because I know we're near the holiday week and everybody's busy. So thank you for taking the time out of your evening to spend with us.